السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Okay. I did not hear the introduction, so I think I will just start at this point. I'm Hussam Al-Jahani. I'm one of the neurosurgeons in Department of Neurosurgery at King Fahd Hospital of the University at Imam Abdurrahman Al-Faisal. I'm delighted for the invitation by the alumni unit and your colleague Dana coordinating with me for the last few days, I would say, for presenting about how to present in high impact conferences, and I adjusted it a little bit just to have a general sense of what. Okay, I see a voice, but the voice is not clear. Is that true for everyone? Because I can adjust the setting of my voice.
No, doctor, it's clear now.
Okay, so I'm going to proceed. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So the title that I chose, presenting your research from poster to podium and miles in between, because you'll see throughout the talk that there are a few things that we can do that will help present you in a better way, because again, you're not only presenting yourself, you're presenting your team and your work and all the effort that goes with that. I have nothing to disclose related to this presentation. For the sake of presentation, I'm going to be talking about things that are not in the slides. I might elaborate on some slides just to show you the concept of a few things. So this is one example. I always start my talks with this slide. So two things that we ought to learn from history. One, that we are not in ourselves superior to our fathers, and other is that we are shamefully and monstrously inferior to them if we don't advance beyond them. Now, I have to tell you that I don't read it like this. I say it in a different context, in a different way, but the message from this is always there. And this slide keeps changing based on the people that I'm talking to, the audience that I'm having, or the topic that I'm presenting. So when I'm presenting, for example, about interventional and vascular, I show the pictures of my mentors whom I learned in vascular neurosurgery and interventional neuroradiology from. When I talk about neuro ICU and stroke, I talk about these two mentors of mine. And when I talk about trauma, I talk about the two people that I learned trauma from. And I also quote my neurovascular mentor who instilled a lot of surgical principles in myself. So choose something to honor your mentors. Always, it's a cycle. We're passing forward what we learned from them. And it's something that hopefully keep their legacies alive. So why do you present in any way, anywhere? I mean, this is, unfortunately, this is like a Zoom meeting, so we cannot interact one-to-one, and I cannot see the audience. I cannot, see what you're doing or have a face discussion with you. But just imagine that we are in a discussion and talking about the sources of information. People can look at books, can look at journals, can learn from their teachers. And recently, the social media platform is becoming more and more scientifically oriented, and Google answers everything, and WhatsApp groups and chats and discussions. So these are where we get knowledge from. But why is it that we need to talk about things and present them in meetings and conferences and webinars and workshops and stuff like that. Because whatever is out there, we need to establish authenticity. We need to clarify it to people so they can understand it, and we have to show an experience and accountability to the knowledge presented, because people in like, why is it in Google is just information, it's not knowledge, because it's not validated in any way, it's not accountable. People who are presenting, they're not accountable for anything that they're presenting. And at the end of any presentation, just make sure that you understand it enough to be able to guide people to do better or improve upon what they're doing. And we will elaborate through the talk about all these elements. Where does this apply? Um, Actually, anytime you're talking to a group of people, these things that I'm presenting are going to apply. Whether you're talking in your department grand round, or your inner city round, or local symposium, or national conference, or an international meeting, the standard of presentation is always going to be the same. So for you to present something of value, you have to know your audience, you have to know your time limitation, and you have to know your strength of what you're presenting, and you know your limitation and know your competition. So it's like preparing for a battle in a way, but at the end of the day, you're just one person talking. So you have to be well prepared for this, and you need to present yourself and your team in the strongest way possible. Now, I wanted to show you something related to this. You see what I did here? I was talking about, principles and knowing what to do and success, and then I presented two pictures. One is of historic nature, like Napoleon going into somewhere in Egypt, and then another one is a mythical soldier facing an elusive kind of battle. Why did I do this? Because it is known that the attention span of human beings is about 40 seconds. Then after 40 seconds, people will start thinking about something else. So you need to bring their attention back to you. So you can use it in different ways. So these are called the hook effects, and for they can be visual, active, or passive, where they can be auditory, where you can change your voice or like increase your voice or muffle your voice, and even sometimes if it's a long lecture, you can actually stop. So when you stop, whoever was thinking about something else, now you're the noise in the background that disappeared, so they can come back to you, and now you can continue to talk. So these are things that you can apply to your talk. I'll elaborate more on this as I will show you a practical example. So this is a slide where I'm talking about stroke, and this is the outline for that talk. And it was presented somewhere else, so I'm using the statistics and the cost for the health system and the case fatality and the classifications of stroke, and trying to keep the attention with the color and the stick diagram. Now I'm looking at ranges, and we're talking about cerebral blood flow in gray matter, white matter, and whatever the effect of the EEG and brainstem reflexes. Now we come to a little bit more of a basic science thing, and what are the derangements that happen to the cells. Now, if I start talking about this, when I start to talk about like ionic shifts and oxygen-free radicals and neurotransmitter, everything you say, you lose more and more people. So that's why when I talk about the aftermath, you'll see that I'm talking about stroke survivors, but on the right hand side, there is like stop, drop, and roll, which is for the fire, which you teach 5-year-olds. And it has a provocative statement that stop, drop, and roll does not work in health. Now you will get the attention of the audience. They will come back, talk to you. This is not an important point, but the important point is this. So when I wanted to come back to an important message, I gave the hook in the slide before. So that's how this is a practical example for this. Now you talk about this, the attention comes in waves. So now we're talking about another thing, like how to look into cerebral ischemia from a physiological point of view. And we come to border zone ischemia now, like, oh my God, border zone ischemia. And you start losing more people. And when we talk about like historics and where does the number come from and the description of it, and you start losing more and more people. Now, in this slide in particular, I actually use the picture on the bottom right side to show that it's a shadowy thing. And then I show the picture of this person. Now, whoever is, all of you who knows who this person is, now I used to ask who this person is, and people might not know. This is a US president, Ronald Reagan. He was one of the shadiest presidents of the US history because he was able to topple a major power with without a single shot fired in a way. So it shows you how now people are like, okay, what is the relation between this guy and what we're talking about? At least they are talking about what we're talking about, not thinking about their car or where they're going to have dinner tonight. So again, the hook effect can be visual, posing a question, pointing to the audience. The passive, which is pictures, abbreviations. Sometimes if you abbreviate something, you increase its value. And provocative slide title or a statement. Now, people always talk about whether you should stand at the podium or keep wandering around. And I always use the example of Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, when he's talking about the iPhone, he will keep walking around. Look at him. He's like pants, no jacket, sneakers, and he was walking around and having the pointer in his hand. But when he talks in the commencement speech, he's completely different. He's stuck in the podium, well dressed, talking in one tone, like looking at everyone, not moving around. So it's not one style fits all. You have to be careful where you are and who are you talking to. If you're talking in an international conference, you cannot keep walking around in the stage because you have senior people who are, they're focusing on you and you're the focus of attention at your podium. But if you're talking in a workshop or in a course or like somewhere where you're supposed to interact with your audience, then you walk around to get closer to the group on the right, and then you come back and come closer to the group on the left. So that's how you can do this. And again, with the voice, you can change your tone. You can even imitate someone where you're putting a picture for. I hope it's not The Simpsons. And then you can, sometimes you have to stop to grab the attention of your audience, especially a big group, and then you can continue. Another technical point, like look at this slide, when we're back to this, remember that attention span of most human beings is 40 seconds. Now, what is the variation here? The attention span of human beings is 40 seconds. This is what you want to aim for. You want to aim for a sharp, clear message from your slide. The way to know this is that there is nothing that can be removed. So here, this is what I wanted to pass to you is that the attention span of human being is 40 seconds. Now, if you remove any word of this statement, you will not understand anything. But this one, remember that the attention is okay. I will remember it the next time. But attention span of human beings, most human beings, is 40 seconds. That is the fact that I want you to know, and I'm presenting it as such. Now with the visual aids, these are going to be rememberable for the foreseeable future, inshallah. So what to avoid? Long-winded sentences. You see sometimes slides that are full of words. I can tell you, the minute your audience sees that, they're going to think about the football game, they're going to think about dinner, they're going to think about what they're going to be doing, not next week, but the weekend after, just to avoid looking at this crowded slide. So, and the other thing is that avoid reading your slide. And I'll show you an example in the next few slides to illustrate this. Now, the crowded slide, remember, the slides used to be on like microchip or transparent film. There's not much room to do it, and that's why they crammed a lot of things in the slides. So it used to be 12 by 12, so you can go up to 12 lines with 12 words in each line. Came down to 8. Now who knows? Again, you have technology, you have illustrations, you have words that come in and out of a slide. So this rule is not rigid. Now, if you're presenting in a very didactic lecture, then you stick with an 8 by 8 rule. It might work, but if you're presenting in your own presentation, the less word on a slide, better with more of your words, and an illustration or a chart or a figure is much better for your audience attention. So use of so how to avoid reading your slide. Again, you can put a figure and talk about the figure. So instead of talking and talking and talking, and then the next slide showing the figure and repeating yourself again, just put the figure and talk about it. It's one slide, and it will do you a lot of good, that people will remember the figure and what you're saying. Now, it is important that when you use the figure, don't keep repeating what is in it. You have to say something different. So when I'm presenting this slide, I will not read the tolerance of ischemic damage is dependent on residual duration. No, I will talk about something that is in the figure. So we'll use the word, for example, viability, which is in the figure, and we'll talk about the infarct core instead of the center of ischemia. And we'll talk about the penumbra instead of therapeutic window and variable spontaneous survival. So now you're not trying to confuse your audience, but you want them to, so whoever is more of a visual person will look at the slide, will look at the picture, and whoever is more of an auditory person will hear you. So you can cater to both groups of the audience. You don't know which audience is and what is the percentage of each of them. But when you give something visual and you talk, so you're catering to both groups and you don't lose any of them. And so again, the proper use of the figure, the audience will see what you're talking about and hear you. That will engage all their senses, and whoever knows what this circle is the hypnotic curves. And again, it's something that will capture the attention of your audience for the time you're allocated, and then they can do whatever they want. The proper use of a table. Now, sometimes you see slides that are like a table is small font like this, and you can really make you're trying to that I as an audience member, I'll try to look at this. When I start to look and try to focus, I will not hear you anymore. I'll tune you out, and that's not something you want to happen. You want people to listen to you. So instead of presenting this like in all its entirety like this, you can break it down. So I took the same table, break it down in few sections. So now they can see you, they can hear you, and they can illustrate the important point. Like for example, confusion, it has whatever 2 points, but the rest of them, they don't have anything. Nobody needs to focus on anything. They can just hear you and see this and remember it. And you can go to section 2, section 3, section 4, and then you're done. So why is it important to do this? Because when I am listening to someone who's presenting a talk, I want to make sure that they put effort in it and they were careful about it, and they really cared for me listening to them. They just did not just jolt everything and hoped for the best. And here you will establish the clarity needed for people to grasp what you're saying and remember it for after your talk. And again, now we shift to who are you talking to. You can be talking to your department grand round or lab meeting for those of you who you're gonna be joining research, inshallah. They are usually a friendly group. You know them, they know you. You joked around all week, and now you're coming in and pretending to be formal. But that's not to belittle the fact that you still have to be formal during your presentation. I mean, people tend to have like a kind of loose attitude when they present in certain meetings, like grand rounds or teachings and venues like this. They start using like mixing words in Arabic and English, and like يجي حاجة يعني بيقول مثلا they want يعني the other thing يقوم يجي زي كذا، يعني يقول حاجات ما لها معنى، ولا يخش يمين ولا شمال ولا يطيح ولا كذا. It's not appropriate. You still, although they're a friendly group, you still have to maintain formality when you're talking, at least for the time you're talking. Now, the beauty about departmental grand rounds and lab meetings is that it's more engaging. They know what you're doing. They know that you slacked off for the last 2 weeks, and they can criticize you for it openly. And the same thing, you can actually ask them for ideas. You can tell them, I'm stuck. You're going to feel very comfortable saying this. You're not going to say this anywhere else, but you're going to say it in front of your group, and that way you can actually generate ideas and help you move your work forward. In a local meeting, the example of this in the neurosurgery world, in our neurosurgery world, is the Eastern Province Neurosurgical Club. It's where neurosurgeons gather it was a Tuesday before COVID, and it's in a hotel where one of the residents or the specialists or the consultants will present and a topic or a case discussion, and we invite sometimes neurologists or radiologists to talk about certain things that are of interest to all, and that will enrich our collective experiences, because certain hospitals, they excel in one thing, the other hospitals excel in the others. So we can actually build a regional network of patient care that is excellent for all. Now, when we come to the national meetings like the SANS, the Saudi Association of Neurological Surgery meeting, I'm hoping that some of you will go there this year and the year after. It shows the progress in the region, each region on itself, and then this will boost cooperation across the nation for studies and registries. So your aim of going there is not just to say hi to your friends, it's also to represent your region and try to build a better practice nationwide. When you go to the international meetings, it's not that you want to go to Miami or to Berlin or to Hong Kong. You're actually you're a little ambassador to Saudi Arabia. So you need to present your country, okay, with all the blessings that we have and the support we have from the government and from all of our administrative people. You have to present that, and you have to show the national progress in things. People tend to shy away from talking about things in Saudi Arabia when we're talking in Los Angeles in a big meeting. No, we are progressing, and we have to acknowledge ourselves that we are progressing, and we show our progress. We show our challenges, but we show our progress also. And the other thing is that when we are there, you want to present yourself in such a way, your group in such a way, your hospital, your region, your country in such a way that you grab the attention of the trialists in the group, because you don't really care about people who will do studies and prospective studies. You want to look for people who do trials, because that is where the real progress of medicine is. And that's when you present well in a coherent way, in a sharp, crisp, clean way, they will look at you differently. So when you talk to them and when you send them an email, they will respond to you more favorably. Again, you can be talking about intracerebral hemorrhage to a group of nurses, a group of respiratory therapists, radiation technologists, or physicians, or administrative people. So the same topic, you have to know how to present it to each and every one. When I want to present this to a group of physicians, I will focus on the guidelines or the experiences or the practices that are different from one region to the other. But if I'm talking about intracerebral hemorrhage to the administrative people in the hospital, I'll be presenting the logistics of care, the hospital stay, the transfer in and out of the hospital, and the networking with other hospitals for the sake of proper treatment for intracerebral hemorrhage. So it is dependent on who your audience is. The same topic, you will come to realize that you will do the same slide, you just skip one or two. It's now for the admin people, you add one or two and skip others. It's for the radiation technologists. So it is the same message that you just vary it a little bit for your audience. Know your competition. It's not a fight, it's a competition. التنافس الشريف عمره ما يكون غلط. It's always good that we build and we feed off each other's positive energy, and we compete in the good way and to improve ourselves. So when you want to present in any meeting, you have to know the program. You cannot go in there and not knowing what the speaker before you is going to say or the speaker after you is going to say. You have to know who the speaker is, because we know each other in each of our fields. We know each other. So I know if Dr. So-and-so is before me, he or she knows that I know that he or she will present about this, or they focus about this. So I might downplay this so we don't cross each other or repeat ourselves. Now, you have to be more considerate of the person coming after you, because let's say, if I'm going to be talking about intracerebral hemorrhage, and the one after me is going to be talking about neuronavigation intracerebral hemorrhage, there is no point that I will present my neuronavigation experience in intracerebral hemorrhage. I'm going to be cutting half of his talk. So that's why it's important to review the program ahead of time and adjust your slides accordingly. Look at the moderator. The moderator is usually a person who's senior and they have experience in the field, and you know their experience, so you want to, and they're going to ask you questions. So you know this person does it this way. I'm going to be asked about this. So you prepare yourself with an answer, if not in your talk, at least when it comes in the discussion, you know that this is the answer, so you don't have this effect, that the shock or the wow, that this came from nowhere. You show yourself as ready for any question or any discussion, and you adjust your talks accordingly. Now, the general flow of any talk, I want, and this is like a standard list, the title slide, the outline, the introduction, objective, methods, result, discussion, and conclusion. I want you to look at this and then look at the question on the right side. I'll give you 30 seconds to do that. So what is wrong with this picture? I'm just checking the slide. Okay, that's a question we'll keep till the discussion. Okay, now I'll continue with the talk. Now, so here, sorry. So when you look at the picture, it's like nice. It's very well balanced colors and everything is fine. But again, there is a rule in life: what's wrong is wrong, even if everyone is doing it, or right is right, even if no one is doing it. Now look at what's wrong in this picture. If you pay attention to the details, the winds are going in different directions. So unless this is like the center of the universe, this picture is wrong. Why am I emphasizing this point very strongly like this? Because there are a lot of times when we attend meetings and we don't see disclosure slides. Disclosure slide is very important. Even if you have nothing to disclose, you have to say it, because it's important. The Transparency Acts and the collegiality dictates that we are clear on what we are saying and what we're doing. I don't appear like I'm supporting one stand because of certain influence by a study or by a trial or by a group of people or an entity that is supporting my practice. So this is very important. Then you'll see the outline, the introduction, the objective, the method, the results, the discussion. But then you have to have, and this is what makes you stand out when you're presenting things, is to show future direction. So, okay, I presented to you this. Where are we going to go from here? Either me or you, the audience. So it's a one slide that will show where we're going to go from here. That's going to put a lot of burden on you, that your presentation has to be perfectly understood to the point that you can make a recommendation for people where to go. That will give you the authority or the authoritative presence that people will gravitate to you when you talk to them about collaboration and setting up studies and trials in the future. Acknowledgement slide. I cannot emphasize this enough. You have to acknowledge people, and we'll see how it goes in the next few slides, and then you conclude. People, like in this list, I did not put the references because the references has two ways of doing this. Either at the bottom of each slide, so you're talking about something and you quote a study and you put it down at the bottom of your slide, or you listed all the references, you list them at the end. I like to do it this way. So this is about sympathetic modulation in head injury. This is the figure. I talk about these trials, and then we'll go with these studies, and we show that it's favorable for beta blockers, and this is the reference for people to do it. I prefer it just because I do prefer it this way, and this is another hook effect. You can see now I'm starting to lose you. So I put something provocative, and either this kid will get to you or this general will get to you. I don't know who you are, and I don't know what scares you, but to me, that little kid is much scarier. So, but all joking aside, why is it important and why is it important for me to put the reference at the end of each slide? Because it shows an organized effort on my part, because this goes with this, not that, there you go. You have a bunch of references, just sift through them and do it on your own. The other thing is, it helps your audience take notes. For those of who still write notes in meetings, or you can just snap a picture with your phone, then this is the time to do it. Because if I list the references at the end, you don't know which one is referring to what. So you know what, you're not going to look at any of them. But if this study is a reference to the text that you're talking about, or to the figure you're talking about, to the table you're talking about, it will make you link them much, much better, and a better reading in the future. The other thing, which is more important, honestly, and this comes in really handy in international meetings, if you're presenting a study and you quote the person who's sitting in the audience, you can actually point at them and you can have a real interaction and acknowledgement in front of everyone for their effort and for their contribution to science. And this is very humbling. And it's again, a way to have people legacies live on and acknowledge their work in real time. So it comes in handy sometimes. So again, you have to change all these suggestions to whether you're giving a didactic lecture, an exploratory talk, or a reporting talk. And the didactic lecture is, again, it's not for everyone. It's for students, or for very targeted group of audience, limited again to colleges and courses, and usually they're long, so the audience is prepared to sit for an hour and listen to somebody, and you're going to be there for an hour talking to a group of people. So again, you either can make it as boring and as dull and as painful as it is perceived to be, or make it more fun and more engaging in ways that you can stop and have a discussion, or you can continue with the talk and shift to another topic after a while. So you have to figure out what to do. Again, it's about the logic of what you're presenting and why you're presenting. The exploratory talk, by this I mean you're presenting something that is still in the exploration phase. It's not like gravity is well established and everyone knows it. it's result of something that you're working on. So again, it has an inherent certainty issue. It can be challenged by the audience. Usually conferences give you 10 to 15 minutes to present this, so you have to be careful as to what is the points that you use in the introduction, and clearly describe your method and emphasize the important results that you have, and generate a couple of good discussion points and where you're going from there and move forward. And so again, in order to do that, you have to be sharp in your presentation. Your points are boiled down to something very clear that people will remember. And they say that if you want to know that you understand something, especially your results, explain them to a 5-year-old. If they understand you, you're good. So you have to be careful in doing this. Reporting talks are usually by the experts. So these are either invited speakers or people who ran major trials, and now they come to share the results of these major trials that are usually published in major journals like New England Journal of Medicine or Nature and the like. Those, they don't need hooks or anything, because all the people in the room are looking forward to the result of that study. So, and they're usually brief and full of discussion after. So the speaker will talk for about 5-7 minutes, major result after major result after major result. People will have a clap or standing ovation, and then they will have a discussion for 30 minutes after. So, and again, the reporting talk, not only scientific, can be otherwise, like, in major conferences, they have like invited speakers that are surgeons, physicians, scientists, spiritual leaders, clowns. So they can have anyone who can talk to them and change the mood and enrich the conference as a whole. You have to always speak clearly with poise, not too fast, not too slow. You have to be neatly groomed. I mean, if dirty look is your thing, but when you come to a major conference, you have to be well dressed and well groomed. And again, there was a meeting, one of the neurosurgical meetings in Hawaii, that the dress code in the pamphlet of the meeting was you have to be with a Hawaiian shirt. Everyone who came in with a suit was like kind of violating the rule, and they looked like snobs. So again, follow the dress code that is expected of that meeting, and it will be appropriate. And keep looking at your audience. Before COVID, we used to be in rooms where we look at our audience, and we keep looking at you. And sometimes I encourage my residents to maybe don't look at your audience, but look at the empty chairs in between, because when you're talking and someone does this, you're going to be discouraged and maybe lose your focus or lose your strength. So look at empty chairs in between people. You give the illusion that you're looking at them, and they pay attention. Hopefully, inshallah, we'll get back to that and get over this COVID thing soon. So now you've done your presentation, you're ready. How do you know you're ready? Proofreading is an important thing. Proofreading meaning that you give it to one of your colleagues or present it to one of your colleagues, and they can criticize you, but you do it in real time, like not joking around, over, you're leaning on one side and they're leaning on the other. No, you almost as if you're standing in front of your audience and presenting it in real time, what you're going to say, and you're going through your presentation, and they time you and they look at where they lost you, and they can guide you through. So that's why you have to pick someone who's really critical to do this. Read it backwards. This is a trick that I learned when I was doing my master's, is that whenever you want to see that the sentence or the paragraph is good, you have to read it backwards. That make sure that no points are repeated. There is no point that are kind of redundant or crossing each other. So you have to go forward and backward in your presentation. Rehearse the times and the hooks. It was said that Hitler and Mussolini, they used to rehearse their speeches in front of the mirror, and they put their hand up when it's necessary, keep it on the side when it's necessary. So don't do it don't do it to that extent, but at least you practice your presentation and timing perfectly. If you're using animation or the animate function, use it in the play mode, because sometimes they trick you and they come out of sync, or they're not with the tab. They all come at once, so they kind of mess up your point that you want to emphasize. And follow the critical appraisal chart, because if you're if you're in the residency or in the internship and your presentation is being evaluated, most of the evaluation follow the critical appraisal chart. So you have to be aware of what the critical appraisal is and follow it. I hinted to it here. I mean, this is where we get to the level of evidence. Where most of us will be presenting in cohort studies, or hopefully, inshallah, in randomized trials, but you have to be more of as you go forward, you go into more and more refined work. So here, the critical appraisal is on the right side, but you have to pay attention that most of the work is done ahead of time. So you're in the PICO tool, and you can look at it for population intervention comparison and outcome. And then you look at the critical appraisal, which people are going to evaluate your talk about. And again, it's again, this is like a big slide, but as I told you, we break it down into smaller ones. And this is an example of an abbreviation that works, critical appraisal. Now, if someone just walked into the lecture into this talk and said CA, what is the CA? And so instead of asking someone next to them, they will pay attention. So you will say critical appraisal. Oh, it is critical appraisal. So now they're gonna continue to listen to you for the next 2 minutes or so till you do something else. So again, the purpose of the study is very clearly stated. Appropriate rationale is provided. The clear outline of the concept and how is it working, and demonstrate understanding of the ethical implication, the sampling strategy, and provide information of the data collected, and then keep the procedure of data organized and retrievable. You have to mention all this, and the analysis for your study, and you clearly show the reliability, or if there is limitation to your study, that you address them, and you showed clear progress from the research question to the conclusion in a logical way. The acknowledgement, I cannot emphasize this enough. Whatever we do, there's a lot of work that goes in from other people. I mean, we are presenting there, but we are representing the work of a lot of people with us. So anyone who contributed to the work, anyone who collaborated in the work, any funding or supporting entities or agencies. And remember, it can be dynamic as the work goes on. So here, for example, when I first started talking about cerebrovascular disease, this was my acknowledgement slides, like 3 people. But when the team started to increase, and alhamdulillah, we have a big team, and I started to learn to acknowledge our hidden soldiers, the techs and the nurses, because again, without them, none of what we do matters, because we cannot really cater to everything for our patients. So I acknowledge them systemically, and also our neuroanesthetist, who without them we cannot do anything. I'll pause a little bit for posters. Posters are not any different. The only difference is that they do the talking. Some conferences give you room to like 3 or 5 minutes to present your poster to an evaluator, but that should not be the main focus. The poster should stand for itself. So if I ask you, what is there? Well, this is the Louvre. What is in the Louvre? The most important thing is the Mona Lisa, right? So masterpiece, or the centerpiece for your poster, is what you want people to get out of. Choose one thing, one point for your poster. If your title says the effect of something on something, then whatever they see from a mile away is that effect. It has to be a clear figure or a clear chart. Maybe you put a supplemental chart on the side, short text, key references only. You don't need to list everything, and your contact at the bottom. If they get there, then you succeed. This is like an outline, suggested outline of things. I mean, I know people like round things and stuff, but this is one way to keep it clean and neat and professional. People will follow from one column to the next till they get to your information and email you about it. This is an example of wellness in in a nutshell. So you see very short statements, not longer than a line or two. The emphasis is in the middle. You will spend like 2 hours looking at this, and you can go for it, and you see the information posted here and there, and you can contact people. They put the barcode. It's very smart. You don't need to put anything with the technology that we have. So you keep it visually attractive. There is a center focus point. Everything else is on the side, and you hope that you get an email or two about it. So I'll stop here, and we'll see the discussion, the chat box, and questions. Okay. Well, oh, so one of the there is one was answering the questions for the picture. The road is flipped. Well, that's like an impressionist touch. The road changes color because it crossed the boundary. One said the direction of the color of the air. That's very good observation. Okay, now the questions in the Q&A are: how can we apply the hook effect in an abstract presentation at the conference in which we have very limited time? Well, that's a very good question, because when you're short on time, by essence, you have nothing else to present except what you're presenting. So there should be no room for people to wander off. So the main goal for these short flash presentations is that you hit them hard and fast with the information. So you keep from one question to the next, to the next, to the next. Keep the slides are like you can use one slide as the hook for the previous one, and so on. So the way I do it in these short presentations is that when I put the slide, the title of the slide, the next slide is at the bottom of my slide that I'm talking about. So it's like a question, and it's answered in the next one, answered in the next one, answered in the next one, and then you conclude. That way to do it. That's, I mean, putting things in the middle of a 3-minute presentation is just going to take more time. Do you recommend moving hands during presentation? Whatever works for you. You don't want to look like a robot. You don't want to look like a rigid structure. Do what you do. Be yourself. If you're someone who talks with your hand, I talk with my hand, and I'm never ashamed of it during meetings. I point to people, and even if I'm quoting someone who, like I'm referencing someone in front of me, I will actually point to them and let everyone look at them. But if you're a kind of person who puts their hand on their chest and don't move, just don't move. Be yourself and you'll be fine. Then there's a question about, is it okay to still professional, to add a little bit of fun to the presentation? Yes, it depends. I mean, yes, the answer is yes. It's always good to put a fun thing, but don't put a fun thing that people use in a joking matter like WhatsApp and stuff like that, like emojis. Okay, if you want to make a joke, make it in a way that is intellectual. Put a picture of something that is funny, that people know is funny. Like for example, when I use the tissue loss during strokes, I showed the Simpson with this little brain that I can show it in a different time, but the head of the Simpson is like this big, and the brain is like a little peanut inside. So it's not offensive to anyone, because that's something else you need to understand. You have to be very careful as to what is being perceived, because some of them are not correct, whether in cultural or political or gender wise. So it's kind of, we have to be careful about these things. Can you return back to slides? Acknowledgement, please. Okay. Show it, but I don't know what was the question for this, but you can look at it. One of the easier hooks to use are memes, but when and where can we use them? Again, it depends on your context. You know, if you're asking this, it's like whenever the social media rule, if your question, should I post this, then you shouldn't. So if you have a meme that you think is appropriate and it's fitting to what you're saying, go ahead and put it. It's smart and it's engaging. But if you yourself, you're asking a question of, should I put this? Then you probably look for another less intense meme, if you may. How do you choose the right chart for a poster? It depends on your poster, depends on what is the data that you're presenting. Um, I shared with some of your colleagues, actually one of your colleagues, about the proper type of data for each chart. This is like from the epidemiology literature. Um, Maybe you'll see with Dana, I can share it with the rest of you. What are the general form of the slide? In another term, what do you do advice in presenting slide? It's kind of a general question, but I can tell you some, okay. One of the things that I can focus on here is that two things. Some conferences, they force you to use their own slide, and they emphasize this in the email. You have to use the template because again, it's a technical issue that when I present my own slides like this, they're going to be cut in half, or the side of it is gone, or the bottom is gone. So they send you their template and you follow the template. If you don't have to, I prefer to use my own slides because I can change them from dark to bright to different things to reflect my points that I'm presenting. But another thing to look into is the dark and bright backgrounds. For scientific presentations, like ones where you show cells or Western plots or immunohistochemistry, it's always good to have a dark background. But if you're presenting all of it is talking points and figures like charts and like pie charts or graphs, then you can use a bright color background. But it's all open for debate, and you have to tailor it to what you're presenting. Uh, do you suggest using beta blockers? No, this is not the intention of presenting this here. It's just to show you that the reference was at the bottom. And the answer to you is depends. What is the pathology you're treating? What is the perfect response when someone asks you a question and you don't know the answer? Just say you don't know. Takes you less than a second to say I don't know. You gain the respect of an entire room. But if you keep fussing around, people will know that you don't know what you're talking about. After 10 seconds, you lose respect of everybody. Be of value to yourself and say I don't know. You will do two things. You state your confidence, and you will improve your knowledge because you're going to go and read about it. And I apply this with my residents all the time. They know the answer is yes, no, or I don't know. And I don't know is a very respectable answer. Is it something positive for students and intern to present in conference, either local or international? Definitely. Um, then you will see that you will screw up in the first few times, but it's never a problem. I encourage the students and the residents to present. I myself was fortunate that my mentors early on pushed me to present in international meetings, and for my luck, I was presenting in front of big names, huge names, and I'm lucky that I was able to do that because as time went by, I became known to them. So if it wasn't for my mentors giving me the chance early on, I would have not gone through that blessing. When again, when I okay, the questions keep coming, and We have, okay, I don't want to take the time from the other colleague, so um, let me just skim through this if there is any repetition. Okay, there is one about how do you know you did well? I think it's this one. The proofreading and reading it backwards and rehearse the times and the hooks and or play your presentation and follow the critical appraisal. I think can we use the hooks in conferences like SAMS? Yeah, people perceive that neurosurgeons are like monsters. No, we like fun things too. So that's how we live. You know, we make jokes and we feed off positive energy. So yeah, go ahead, make your meme jokes appropriate, and everyone will appreciate that. So presenting a poster again, it's like the question that your colleague asked about the flash presentations, like a 3 to 5 minute presentation. You have to be to the point. You don't need to add anything. Your poster is right there. You just want to emphasize the real message from your poster and go to it and conclude, and then they will ask you a couple of questions and then you will stop. Because if you consume the 3 minutes, they cannot ask you anything and they cannot evaluate you. But if you present for a minute and a half, you give them a minute to ask you a question, and then you can follow the answer for 30 seconds and you're done. So that's how I would do it. Something about slide 62. Acknowledge everyone. I just want to read the important points, okay? Okay, so here I'll have to just, so Dana, I think will, because there is this, at what stage of your presentation, how should you, like, the, how should you share and why do you hold back? I think we can stop for this because I don't want to take the time of the next speaker. If there is time, we'll come back to it. So I'll stop it, if you don't mind, and I will just stop the show now and we'll move from there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hussam, for your interesting, comprehensive presentation that we truly enjoyed and benefited from. Now we will continue the webinar with our next presenter, Dr. Abdullah Shakhs. He will tell us how to present like experts from his experience. Welcome, Dr. Abdullah.
السلام عليكم. أتمنى صوتي واضح.
أيوة واضح.
طيب السلام عليكم. بالبداية حاب أشكر دكتور حسام. Such presentation صراحة أنا استفدت يعني ممكن أكثر من الحاضرين. كان يعني فيها معلومات جدا قيمة. واسمحوا لي أنا في اللقاءات اللي مثل كذا ما أحب أتكلم في رسمية، فبحاول إني أتكلم بالعربي بأكبر قدر من الإمكان، لأني أشوف الموضوع جدا مهم، ويعني ممكن إنه يغير أشياء كثيرة in your career. بس لو تعطوني دقيقة، كنت محضر فيديو بس. طيب ممكن الفيديو ممكن نخليه في آخر البرزنتيشن. طيب، أول سؤال يجي في بالي لما أقدم أو نقدم مثل هذا السيمبوزيوم، ليش إحنا يعني نقدم مرات؟ إيش الفائدة من هالشيء هذا؟ خليني أقول لكم أن بدون مبالغة التقديم بالمؤتمرات والسيمبوزيومز كان أهم عامل لقبولي بالتخصص وحبي له وفهمي للأبحاث العلمية بشكل عام. إنك كيف المعلومة أصلاً أو كيف التكنيك هذا ابتكر وإيش البروسيس اللي مر فيها. هذا الشيء خلاني أحب كثير موضوع الأبحاث والمؤتمرات وأحضرها أكثر، وكل ما أحضر مؤتمر أكثر سواء كسبيكر أو one of audience، كان هالشيء يعطيني stimulation إني أقرأ في التخصص ال ENT أكثر. تمام؟ فحضور المؤتمرات جدا مهم بشكل أكبر مما تتخيلوا. طيب ليه؟ ببساطة لأنه هو المكان اللي يجمع فيه أفضل الخبراء والاستشاريين في مجال واحد، سواء ميديكال ولا نون ميديكال. تمام؟ فتواجدك بينهم وحضورك معهم يعطيك أدفانتج بعدة جوانب. خلينا نتكلم مثلا من الجانب العلمي. تقديمك لبحث في مؤتمر محترم يعطي validity للبحث أصلا، يعني بحكم وجود الخبراء في وجود أفضل المتخصصين في المجال المعين هذا. تقديمك للبحث ومناقشتك للبحث معهم يعطي validity بشكل كبير. الحاجة الأخرى أن مناقشتك للبحث يخليك تفهم إيش الادفانتج والديسادفانتج أو الويكنس أو الجابس اللي موجودة في بحثك هذا. فسواء أنت كنت لسه in process يعني ما نشرته، هالشيء حيعطيك إيش الأشياء اللي تشتغل عليها وتحسن بحثك حتى تقدمه للمجلة ويكون جاهز بشكل تام. أو إذا كنت أنت already كملته ويو سبمتت للمجلة وخلاص already نشر، ممكن بعض الأوقات تكمل عليه كمشروع، يصير كمشروع بحثي، أو ممكن أنك تبني على البحث هذا بنفس يعني بفكرة مشابهة بحث آخر، لكن في جانب يعني في نقطة أخرى، في هايبوثيسز مختلفة. تمام؟ أما على الجانب الشخصي، تواجدك بين هذه القامات في التخصص التخصص يبني لك علاقات علمية قوية. ممكن بعض الأوقات يكون أحد الحاضرين عنده اهتمام مشترك معك في نفس الموضوع، فتبني معاه مشروع بحثي قوي. وهذا صارت يعني كثير معاي بحيث إنه خلتني أحب المجال هذا أكثر. تمام؟ الحاجة الثانية والمهمة، أغلب المتواجدين، وهذا لل 6 year medical student والانترن، ترى على فكرة أغلب المتواجدين في المؤتمرات هذه هم أعلام التخصص. فأنت إذا أبديت your interest في التخصص وعطيتهم يعني قد إيش أنت مهتم في هذا التخصص في جوانب هذا التخصص، ترى انبهار شخص من المتواجدين هذا يعني أن الانبهار هذا حيوصل للجميع وحتكون فرص قبولك أكبر بكثير. هذا أنا استشعرته صراحة. تمام؟ خليني أقول لكم حاجة يعني صارت معي. أول مرة قدمت في بحث كان في مؤتمر في جامعة الملك فيصل عندنا في الأحساء. فلما قدمت، من اللي كانوا متواجدين كان استشاري في ENT من جدة. فتواصلي معه يعني القواسم المشتركة في حب التخصص بيننا هو الشيء اللي خلاني أبلاي للتخصص في جدة. فدائما خلوا في بالكم أن المؤتمرات أفضل بكثير وأهم بكثير مما تتخيلوا. طيب نتكلم accepted. الفيرست يعني كيف بحثك يكون مقبول في الكونفرنس نفسه، وكيف تقدم البحث بطريقة أكاديمية محترفة، وكيف أصلاً prepare your slides بشكل يكون تام وواضح ومختصر. طيب أنا سويت هذا السلايد ده لأن أحد الزملاء من أنشط الزملاء اللي أعرفهم كان يقول لي إن أول ما قبلنا في التخصص هو كان تخصص أوفثا، فقال لي خلاص الحمد لله الحين برتاح من الأبحاث ومن المؤتمرات. فكان هالشيء صراحة يعني زعلني. ف just to point out إن كل ما زاد مستواك العلمي كل ما زادت أهمية البحث العلمي وأهمية تقديمك في المؤتمرات. ليش؟ خليني أعطيكم مثال. في عندنا زنز هيشين، هذا من العلماء اللي كانوا لهم دور كبير في السوبر كوندكتورز. فابتكر سوبر كوندكتورز كان له يعني خليني أقول لكم انتشار واسع في الوسط العلمي، لكنه ما كان جود سبيكر، كان بعض الأوقات شاي ولا يقدم بطريقة كونفيدنت. فالهيد ديبارتمنت اللي موجود في الشركة كان اللي هو ألين هارمان، هو الشخص اللي قدم البحث هذا أو قدم الاختراع هذا. الحين لما تجي تتكلم عن الكوندكتور هذا أغلب الناس يعطوا الكريدت لألين مش لشينكس. فهذه جدا مهمة على فكرة، أنك دائما تكون أنت عندك السكيلز في تقديم الأبحاث. طيب. أول جانب مهم إن كيف أحصل على قبول في المجلة. أول حاجة قبل ما يعني تفكر إنك كيف تحصل على قبول، لازم تختار الرايت كونفرنس for your personality و your research. يعني مرة من المرات أحد الأشخاص كان يقدم، إحنا كنا في فكان يقدم بحث عن الإبستاكسس في مؤتمر وبائيات. يعني الموضوع أبدا ما له علاقة. دائما لازم أنت تفهم بحثك أكثر وتبحث عن كونفرنس مناسب لبحثك وله علاقة بالبحث حقك. طيب إيش المقصود بالبرسوناليتي؟ وهذه جدا مهمة. بعض الناس يكون عندهم تفضيل إنه يقدم في مؤتمر مزدحم ويكون في زخم كبير، بالعكس هو يعطيه ستيميوليشن وحماس بشكل كبير جدا. في الجانب الآخر بعض الأشخاص لا، دائما يحب أن الكونفرنس يكون كلوز ريجنال كونفرنس وما يكون في زخم كبير. تمام؟ فأنت ما أقول إن دائما خليك، يعني مثلا إذا أنت تفضل المؤتمرات اللي تكون يعني صغيرة حجما انك خلاص تبقى كذا، لا، لازم انك انت طبعا تتطور وموف اون للانترناشونال كونفرنسز وغيرها، لكن ممكن تكون ستيب باي ستيب. تمام؟ انت تفهم نفسك تقول والله انا مثلا 5th year ولا 4th year medical student، خليني ابتدي في المؤتمر هذا وبعدها اكون اودينس في الانترناشونال كونفرنسز لين ما في يعني في مرحله من المراحل اللي تقدم في المؤتمر. تمام؟ الحاجه الثانيه في كول فور ابستراكتس، اعلانات كثيره موجوده سواء في التويتر في منصات التواصل الاجتماعي جميعا، حتلاقي كثير منها. لازم تشوف الثيمز حقت الكونفرنسز، لان في كل اعلان حيكون في ثيمز، تشوف هل الثيمز هذه مناسبه لبحثك او لا. ممكن يكون بحثك خرافي ويظلمه ان الثيمز مختلفه. يعني اذكر كان عندي بحث قبل في مجله اكسفورد، فقدمت في مؤتمر هو اصلا ENT، لكن ENT شيء يعني علم واسع. يعني ممكن كان في مؤتمر عن الاوتو وانا بقدم عن الراينو، فمهما كان بحثي قوي انا استغربت ان هم رفضوه. ليش؟ لان اصلا doesn't match with their theme. فلازم تكون انت عندك الرؤيه هذه، هل بحثي مناسب او لا. طيب احد الاشخاص كان يقول ان الابستراكت it is the easiest part of your research. وهذا طبعا يعني مفهوم خاطئ جدا. بالعكس الابستراكت يعتبر هو أهم جزء في البحث، رغم أنه لا يتجاوز 200 إلى 250 كلمة وممكن بعض الأوقات أقل. ليش؟ لأنه هو اللي حيكون الإعلان في المجلة نفسها اللي حتقدم فيها البحث على مستوى المجلات وعلى مستوى المؤتمرات. ارسال، يعني انت المقيمين الانفستيجيتور نفسهم ما راح يفهموا بحثك الا لما انت ما راح ترسل لهم غير الابستراكت، ما راح ترسل لهم البحث كامل. فارسالك للابستراكت هو اللي حيكون يعطي نبذه كامله متكامله عن البحث حقك. لذلك دائما الابستراكت رايتنج يحتاج انك تراجعها بشكل كبير وتفهم الابستراكت بشكل عميق، وحتكلم عنها في يعني في السلايدات الجايه. طيب، ودائما خلوا في بالكم انه اوكي صح اي ابريشيت البوستر، لكن برضو دائما الاورال توك يعطي مور اتراكشن ويبين للناس اللي موجودين حولك انك انت يو ار مور انترستد في البحث هذا، وقدرتك على الاقناع في الاورال توك اكثر من البوستر. لذلك دائما حاول انك تقدم اورال توك. طيب، فرص قبول بحثك تكون أكبر في 3 يعني أشياء رئيسية. طبعا مو شرط تكون بس هي، لكن هذه أنا من خلال خبرتي شفت 3 أشياء. أول حاجة لما يكون experimental، ولأن الإكسبيرمنتال يعطيك يعني more accurate data في كثير من الجوانب. الحاجة الثانية إذا كان البحث يعني في innovation، ما في كثير أبحاث تتكلم عن نفس الموضوع. تمام. الحاجة الأهم بالنسبة لي اللي هو جاب فيلينج. أنت لازم أي بحث تعمله لما تعمل بروبوزل تفكر إيش الجاب اللي I will fill في المجال العلمي المعين هذا. تمام. This is very important things يعني. طيب، هذا أذكر أحد الدكاترة كنا حاضرين معاه presentation، فكان يتكلم عن مثال على بحث كان قوي جدا تقريبا في التسعينات الثمانينات، تقريبا كان 1985. اللي قدمته كانت يعني تعتبر يعني دكتورة رائعة في تخصصها، عن Seborrheic dermatitis in patients with immunodeficiency syndrome. تمام. وأرسلت الأبستراكت هذا لأحد المؤتمرات. المفارقة أن الأبستراكت هذا رفض. ليش؟ لأن لو إن شاء الله حتاخذوا السلايدات هذه وتقروا حتشوفوا فيه أخطاء كثيرة ولا يعطيك أي إمبريشن كاملة عن البحث. تمام. لذلك أنا إيش سويت؟ رحت قريت البحث كامل. طبعا اضطريت إني أشتري وقريت لأنه منشر في مجلة كبيرة، وقريت البحث كامل ولخصته بشكل يعني عدت صياغة الأبستراكت بشكل إن شاء الله أنه يكون يعني احترافي. طيب، أول حاجة لما أنت تيجي تقدم أبستراكت للمجلة حتى to gain acceptance لازم أول حاجة تكون فيه العنوان، الأفليشن، وبعدها الديبارتمنت آسف الأوثر ليست، وبعدها الأفليشن. تمام. بالنسبة للإنترودكشن لازم الإنترودكشن يكون فيه outline للclinical problems for your research. تمام. وهنا في كثير من الأشخاص يقعوا في خطأ إنهم لما يحطوا اللي هو abbreviation يكون يعني they did not define it even if it is AIDS which is very simple. لازم تكتب AIDS stand for what. تمام. طيب، بعدها your hypothesis والpurpose of your research، هذا كله يكون في الانترودكشن. طيب، بالنسبة لأهم بارت عندي اللي هو الميثود، لأن كثير من الأشخاص في الأبستراكت ما تكون الميثود كاملة عندهم. في الميثود لازم تتكلم بشكل كامل عن الستادي ديزاين والسيتنج في أي مستشفى ونوع المستشفى. تمام. إيش السامبل وإيش أخذت السامبلز والكنترول هذه، إيش الميجرز اللي أنت قستها، برضو إيش الستاتستيك أنالايز اللي أنت استخدمتها you have to describe them. إيش تسوي، إيش عملت كاي سكوير relative risk مين، كل حاجة. تمام. فدائما لازم يكون نفس الابستراكت يعطي امبريشن كامل عن الريسيرش نفسه، كيف صار وين صار. تمام. بالنسبة للريزلت لابد يعني تعطي description of sample نفسها و inclusion criteria. برضو بالنسبة للميجرز نفسها إيش الفريكونسيز وموست كومن outcomes اللي أنت استخرجتها من البحث، وبعدها إيش الكومباريجن اللي تعملت ما بين الميجرز نفسها. تمام. طيب الكونكلوجن يكون هو عبارة عن سمري، تمام، سمرايز الابستراكت نفسه. يعني بعض الناس الاشخاص لما يعمل الابستراكت الكونكلوجن حقه يكون بناء على البحث كامل، يعني على بناء على نقاط او ريزلت موجوده في البحث. لا، اذا ما كان الكونكلوجن مبني على الابستراكت نفسه، معناته الابستراكت عندك في خطأ او في خلل، تمام، لان الابستراكت as I said it stands on its own. تمام. طيب هذا بالنسبة لتقديم الأبحاث في قبل المؤتمرات. طيب نجي عند النقطة الثانية، وهي 9 tips of academic of presentation academic conference. تمام. طبعا بعض التيبس ممكن تبدو لكم انها هي يعني معلش على الكلمة بس سخيفة، لكن هي أبدا مو سخيفة. يعني في كثير من الأشياء تعطي فرق كبير ما بين برزنتر وبرزنتر آخر. خليني أتكلم عنها بشكل مبسط. حنرجع لهذا السلايد. في عندنا 9 tips. أول واحدة اللي هو you have to know your audience. خليني أقول لكم مثال. هذا ثاني بحث قدمته كان في أحد المؤتمرات في جامعة الرياض اللي هو جامعة الملك سعود. تمام. طبعا أنا ما كنت أتوقع أن الكونفرنسز لها هذا الزخم. فاللي صار إني لما جيت أبغى أقدم البحث نفسه، لما جيت في المؤتمر لاحظت أن المتواجدين كان وكيل مدير الجامعة، عميد كلية الطب، عمداء في كلية الصحة العامة وغيرها. فهذا الشيء صراحة أعطاني رهبة كبيرة. ليش؟ لأن أنا في البداية ما كنت أعرف مين الأودينس اللي يكونوا موجودين. فلابد تفهم ان انت يعني مين الناس اللي حيكونوا حاضرين. هذه اول واحده. برضو كان في بروفيسورز كثيرين، فانا كان البحث حقي very simple، وكنت I try to simplify it لاني توقعت ان اللي حيكونوا متواجدين كلهم سواء medical student او resident، فما كنت متوقع انه بيكون advanced بالشكل هذا. الحاجه الثانيه، وحتكلم بالتفصيل عن كل نقطه فيهم. you have to يعني follow your time limit، وهذه very important. كثير من الناس عندهم أبحاث جدا قوية، لكن بسبب أنهم they did not follow the time يقع في أخطاء، وحتكلم عنها بالتفصيل. rehearse in front of a friend، وبرضو حتكلم بالتفصيل عنها. check the room in advance، start confidently، maintain eye contact، ensure أو use transitions، encourage question and discussion، وensure natural closing. خليني أتكلم عنها بالتفصيل كل واحدة. بالنسبة لليور أودينس زي ما قلت، إذا كان الأودينس تارجتنج الميديكال ستودنت ولا يعني الجروب المجتمع بشكل عام، you have to make your presentation as simple as you can. لكن لما أنت جيت تتكلم عن مكان في expertise، لا، هنا لازم يكون البحث حقك يعني في يعني more advanced. تمام. خليني أعطيكم مثال. مرة كان في عندنا مؤتمر، أنا توقعت إنه حيكون أدفانس، فكنت أتكلم عن الإبستاكسس، فما حطيت أي سلايد يتكلم عن إيش هي الإبستاكسس أصلاً. ورغم أن البحث كان قوي لكنه رفض أو ما أخذنا يعني أي مركز فيه، بسبب إن النقطة هذه من الأشياء الكومنت عنه كان هذه النقطة. تمام. طيب هذه الأشياء تكلمنا عنها من قبل. طيب بالنسبة للتايم ليميت، خليني أقول لكم حاجة. بعض المؤتمرات، أحد المؤتمرات في جدة هنا، كانوا حاطين تايم ليميت تقريبا 3 دقائق فقط. فأنت طبعا أنا تقريبا قدمت 4 دقائق أو 3 دقائق ونص، فقالوا النص دقيقة هذه حتخسر، يعني يعني حنشيل منك 4 نقاط بسبب إنك you did not follow the time limit. تمام. بعض الأوقات السبيكر اللي قبلك، يعني أنا بصراحة أبريشيت جدا دكتور حسام، طبعا ما راح تكون يعني كل الأوقات الناس بروفيشنال بالشكل هذا، إنه والله أوكي خلاص I finish my time حاعطي السبيكر اللي بعدي. ما راح تلاقي هالشيء دائما. يعني بعض الأوقات ممكن unintentionally السبيكر اللي قبل ياخذ تايم كثيرة، فأنت you have to prepare إنك كان التقديم 20 دقيقة you have to prepare إنه لو في أحد قبلي أخذ تايم كثير، فأنا ممكن أقدم إلى 15 دقيقة، يعني تقريبا 25% of your time لازم تخليه باك اب بالنسبة لك. تمام؟ يعني في أشياء اللي كنت حتتكلم فيها بديتيل، لا تحدد وش الأشياء اللي حتضطر إنك ما تتكلم فيها في ديتيلز. طيب، جدا مهم إنك أنت تعمل practicing in front of your friend. ويمكن أنا محظوظ إنك يعني هالشيء هذا كنت أبتدي فيه من قبل. يعني عندي بعض الأصدقاء خلاص ولا أستحي، بالعكس أكلمهم إنه والله أنا I need you, I need إني sit in front of you و I present my يعني slides before الكونفرنس هذا. وفعلا في يعني أحد الأصدقاء لدرجة إنه أوكي أنت بكرة حتقدم في مؤتمر، يلا أنا أنتظرك تقدم in front of me. يعني في ناس عندهم الكايندنس هذا. تمام؟ لو انت والله ما قدرت تقدم in front of your friend ممكن تعمل ريكورد. ودائما خلي في بالك انك انت لما تيجي تقدم بحث او تقرا بحث mentally، تمام، حيكون التايم مختلف تماما لما تقراه لاودلي. تمام؟ فدائما خلي يعني الثينكينج هذا موجود عندك، انه لا تقعد والله مثلا تمر على السلايدات وتقراها بعقلك وخلاص، يعني تقول انا اوكي اخذت 10 دقائق. لا، لما تقراها بصوت عالي ممكن تاخذ 15 دقيقه. طيب، تشيكينج ذا روم يعطيك كونفدنس اكثر لما تيجي تقدم، لان انت عارف الانفايرمنت هذا. حاجه ثانيه وهذه برضه جدا مهمه، نفس الاجهزه الموجوده لازم تكون familiar with it. تمام؟ وتتاكد انها شغاله ولا لا. يعني مثلا انت اوقات ممكن تبي تحط فيديو ولا تستخدم يعني الكمبيوتر، لازم تتاكد ان كل شيء فيهم يشتغل بالشكل الكويس. تمام؟ زي ما قلت دائما اي بدايه الفيرست امبريشن it's the last impression. فدائما يعني خلي تدريبك اكثر في السلايدات الاولى، لان دائما اذا كنت confident في البدايه انت نفسك حيعطيك stimulation وحيعطيك encourage اكثر انك تقدم بشكل افضل في السلايدات اللي بعدها. maintaining eye contact، وهذا كثير يفهموه غلط، انه اوكي eye contact يعني تصير يمين يسار يمين، يعني بالعكس، يعني بعضهم من كثر ما يحرك عينه disturb الاودينس نفسهم. فانت لازم انك تكون اوكي اي كونتاكت مو بالسرعه اللي يعني يعملها البعض، انه اوكي يعني moving from right to left to left to right ومدري ايش. لا، الوضع يحتاج لانك تكون slower than that. تمام؟ الحاجه الثانيه، نفس الوقفه اللي انت توقفها لازم تكون straight ويور هيد از اب. يعني بعضهم كثير من السبيكر يكون اصلا عينه على المايك، يعني ما ادري انت تكلم اودينس يعني او تكلم المايك نفسه، فحتى الاودينس نفسهم مهما كان يور توك از انترستنج ما حيكونوا مركزين معك. تمام؟ برضو اذكر مره اخذت كورس عن التقديم بشكل عام، فكنت اتحرك بشكل كبير. فسالني احد الانفستيجيتور قال ليش يعني تحرك كثير؟ فقلت يعني والله هذه شغله اخذناها في الكورس. قال لي واضح ان الكورس كان الفيس حقه عاليه لدرجه ان انت تبغى تحلل الكورس. فهي يعني انت ممكن بعض الاوقات يعني هو ما يقصد والله اوكي انه يحرجك، لكن يبغى يوصل لك نقطه ان ترى your body language is very important. تمام؟ transitions is very important، وأنا ما راح أتكلم عنها بشكل عميق لأن ودي إنكم تقروا عنها بشكل كبير. transition like furthermore, in addition, finally, meanwhile, like that. يعني هذه الأشياء ترى تعطي تجذب انتباه بشكل أكبر بكثير. طيب، في نقطة when you move from slide to slide or from section to section، هذه النقطة الأخيرة أنا ودي إن الكل يكون مركز عليها. Let's move to the next part of the presentation or to move to to another idea. That's very important. إنك أنت دائما إنك when you move from section to section يعني تعطي transition تكون attractive للناس اللي حولك. طيب، encourage question. كل ما كان البحث حقك او طريقه تقديمك اتراكتيف، كل ما حيسمعوا لك اكثر، كل ما حتكون الكويستشن بشكل اكبر. في نقطه مهمه بليز يعني don't panic لما أحد يسألك سؤال ما تعرفه، وهذه صارت معانا كثير. we are still يعني إحنا يعني ترى خليني أقول لكم حاجة، أنت حتى توصل لمستوى استشاري أو توصل إلى مستوى يعني إنك تكون لك يعني علم كبير في جانب معين، ترى تحتاج سنوات كبيرة، ومن التدريب ومن البراكتسينج ومن الأخطاء اللي تصير معاك. فدائما خلي في بالك إنك it's okay to do mistakes, it's okay if you don't know. فأي أحد يسأل سؤال ممكن ترد عليه بطريقة ما تكون يعني تبين إنك أنت يعني تعطي اللي هو معلومات خاطئة، وبنفس الوقت تبين إنك أنت willing to know more. يعني مثلا لما أحد يسألك سؤال وأنت تقول والله أنت تكون ما أنت عارفة، ممكن تقول يعني I don't know, I have to explore this angle more مثلا، تمام؟ أو I did not explore this angle يعني so much, I need to think about it more. فبالعكس هذا حيعطيك ريسبكت أكثر. طيب باختصار أي يعني سلايدز كل ما كانت يعني طريقة تقديمك للسلايدز وطريقة يعني التحدث مع الأودينس تشكل فارق كبير يعني في الريسيرش أو في البرزنتيشن. طيب ننتقل للنقطة الأخيرة إن شاء الله ما راح نطول فيها. how to prepare your slides بحيث إنها تكون شاملة البحث كامل. دائما إذا انتهيت من السلايدز لازم تسأل نفسك 4 أسئلة. يعني why did you do this project؟ يعني هل السلايد حقتك هذه answer this question or no؟ how did you do it؟ what did you find and what's the result mean؟ تمام؟ إذا أنت البرزنتيشن حقك مغطي كل هذه ال4 فغالبا your presentation is يعني complete أو perfect enough. تمام؟ طيب خلينا نتكلم في البداية عن الانترودكشن. تمام؟ الانترودكشن بيكون فيها يعني بعض النقاط. خلينا نتكلم أول شيء عن النقطة الأولى اللي هو brief background. زي ما قلت إذا أنت مثلا بحثك عن الإبستاكسس لازم تتكلم في البداية إيش هو الإبستاكسس، تتكلم تعطي brief background عن الإبستاكسس. الحاجة الثانية لازم تتكلم عن البروبلم and its significance. أنا هنا جبت بحث في الدرماتولوجي يتكلم عن تأثير اللي هو التان أو تانينج بيتس على الجلد أو الكومبليكيشن حقت التانينج بيتس. تمام؟ فلما تيجي تتكلم عن البروبلم والله حلو إنك في البداية تتكلم عن حقائق أو أرقام. مثلا 500,000 new cases of skin cancer diagnosed each year. هذا يعطي attraction عالي for your talk. تمام؟ بعدها تتكلم عن الفاكتس which bearing on the problem. مثال ممكن تقول إن a popular source of UV radiation is tanning beds. أو مثلا however tanning beds are promoted to the public as safe due to their use of UVA not UVB radiation. تمام؟ فكل هذه الأشياء يعني facts which bearing on the problem which you mentioned above. تمام؟ بعدها وهذه جدا مهمة صراحة أنا أستخدمها كثير، إنها تتكلم عن literature which لها يعني تكون لها علاقة في البروبلم اللي أنت تتكلم عنه. تمام؟ يعني مثلا تقول one other published study on tanning beds suggests that اللي هو customers inadequately warned about potential of the dangers حقت tanning beds. تمام؟ بعدها ممكن تحط your research question والobjective of your study. يعني مثلا في الستادي اللي لخصته كان يتكلم الايم حقه to study the reason for continue popularity of tanning salon and evaluation of the owner's knowledge of the risk of tannings. طيب هذه بالنسبة للintroduction. بالنسبة للmethods زي ما قلت الميثود لازم تكون تتكلم عن all the يعني method you have done. إيش السيتنج، إيش الميجرز، وكومباريجن في الميجرز، وكل هذه الأشياء. تمام؟ تكون sufficient details which is enough for the investigator to replicate the study. يعني هذه أحسن صراحة جملة شفتها أو أحد قال لي إياها، إن إذا يعني لازم تتكلم عن الميثود بشكل كامل لدرجة إنهم يقدروا إنهم يعني يعملوا replication to your study. تمام؟ زي ما قلت study design والsamples of your research, the mode of selection, how you select the samples. برضو تتكلم عن الميجرز اللي أنت تبغى تقيسها في الريسيرش، عن الانسترومنت اللي أنت حاب تتكلم عنها. أنا ودي بعدين ترجعوا للسلايد عشان ما أخذ وقت كبير، لكن هذه حاجات جدا مهمة. برضو steps of collecting data, how you collect data, الفترة اللي you collecting the data from، مثلا الشهر هذا إلى الشهر هذا أو من السنة هذه إلى السنة هذه. برضو تتكلم عن statistical treatment of the data. كثير من الناس ما يتكلموا عن إيش المقاييس الإحصائية اللي استخدموها، و that's very important. وأنا دائما أقول إن كثير من الناس عندهم ديفكت في البحث مو بسبب إن ما عندهم معلومات بحثية، بس ما عندهم البيسك statistic knowledge. فهذه it's very important صراحة. طيب بالنسبة للريزلت، لازم دائما الريزلت تكون يعني أول شيء لوجيك، تمام، والشيء الثاني إنها تكون يعني مرتبة بشكل كويس. تمام؟ ليش؟ لأن كثير من الناس يعني سكيب، يعني ممكن يتكلم في البداية عن الديموغرافي، بعدين يروح لي عند comparing الميجرز، بعدين يتكلم عن إيش الميجرز. فهنا اللخبطة هذه تعطي الأودينس انطباع سيء عنك. في بعض الأشخاص نفس التيبلز اللي هو يستخدمها أو اللي هو عرضها في البحث حقه، وتكون التيبلز هيوج، يعني أصلاً not visible للأودينس نفسهم. فلما أنت تجي تشرح التيبلز وهم أصلاً ما حد فاهم أو ما حد شايف التيبلز من كثر ما هي كبيرة وملخبطة، عمره ما أحد يعني he will judge you من التيبلز هذه. تمام؟ زي ما قلت الداتا نفسها، وتتكلم عن statistical measures اللي أنت أخذت منها الداتا هذه. This is very important. طيب في نهاية البرزنتيشن أنت حتتكلم عن your problem والميثودولوجي، تتكلم briefly، يعني ترجع تتكلم عن your problem والميثود والفايندينج، لكن ما تجيب يعني أو to present new findings. وهذه أنا شفتها بعض الناس لما يجي يتكلم عن conclusion كأنه يتكلم لي عن new findings وبعدها يعطيني conclusion based on the new findings. طيب وين الفايندينجز؟ هذا ما كان الفايندينجز المعينة هذه ما كانت في الريزلت نفسها. تمام؟ طيب من الأشياء المهمة برضو إنك تتكلم عن limitation of your research. ليش؟ لأن كل research ترى it's okay to have limitations. تمام؟ it's okay to have bias sometimes. فكل ما تكلمت عنها كل ما كان الايفالويشن حقك افضل. برضو recommendation for the future studies هذه يعني حتكون مهمة بشكل كبير، لأنها تعطي انطباع عن أهمية بحثك للأبحاث المستقبلية. طيب هذه كلها تكلمت عنها. النقطة الأخيرة please do not leave. لما تخلص البرزنتيشن do not leave. ليش؟ لأن كثير من الأشخاص الأودينس اللي موجودين ممكن تبني بينك وبينهم علاقات بشكل كبير بعد ما تخلص your presentation، وهذه صارت معي بشكل كبير جدا. نص العلاقات اللي تبنيها في الوسط العلمي تكون بعد ما تخلص your presentation. أنا هذه وجهة نظري. برضو بعض الأشخاص ممكن يكون عندهم question معينة، ممكن تكون يعني حاب يقول لك إياها إذا خلصت بينك وبينه، أو ما فكر فيها إلا لما أنت خلصت البحث حقك أو التوك حقك. تمام؟ طيب قبل ما move to your questions، في مرة من المرات كنا تقريبا هذا ثالث أو ثاني كونفرنس قدمته، كنت في الرياض في مدينة الملك فهد الطبية، وكانت في دكتورة دانا جمعة، يعني ما شاء الله من الأعلام في الاي ان تي. فقلت لها دكتورة بس أبغى أخذ رأيك في البحث هذا. كان البحث يتكلم عن اللي هو first aid management of epistaxis. تمام. طبعا هي كان يقيس الاويرنس للستودنتس في المدارس. فقالت لي عبد الله يعني البحث كويس، وكنا اوريدي نشرناه في مجله مع دكتور ثاني. قالت لي لكن انا اشوف لو كان يعني البحث هذا في يعني يحدث فارق في المجتمع بشكل اكبر، حيكون فرص يعني قبوله في الكونفرنس وانك تاخذ مركز اعلى. فالفكره كانت اني ليش ما نقول في الكونفرنس نفسه ان احنا ما راح يعني نوقف الى هذا الحد، لا it is a project. بعدها بناء على اللي هو الكونكلوجن حقنا حنعمل كورسز للستودنتس والكورسز للتيتشرز، بحيث هم بعدين يعطوا يعني الكورس هذا to their students، بحيث انه increase the awareness of community. تمام. وبعد هالشيء هذا، بعد ما نعمل الكورسز وانكريز الاويرنس، ممكن نقيس كومبير الاويرنس بيفور الكورس وافتر الكورس. وفعلا انا يعني هو كان البحث جدا عادي، لكن لما قلت النقطه هذه اخذنا المركز الثاني. السبب بس ان احنا يعني قلنا او we emphasize importance للبحث حقنا. تمام. وفعلا بعدين لما جيت جدة اشتغلت مع دكتور كان حسام العمودي، وسوينا نفس الفكرة، وإن شاء الله قريب. importance. استمتعت بالتواجد معكم، ويا ليت إذا في أحد عنده أي question you are most welcome.
يعطيك العافية دكتور عبد الله، ما قصرت. دكتور في الQ&A box في بضع أسئلة إذا ممكن تجاوب عليها.
طيب بالنسبة لي flow of presentation زي ما قلنا في يعني كذا زي الترانزيشن موجودة كثير، وفي كثير articles يتكلمون عنها. لو تقرون عنها بشكل أكبر، أنا تكلمت عنها في بعض السلايدات، في أحد السلايدات because it's really very important وتعطي attraction كبيرة. طيب presentation. طيب best way to conclude the presentation depend on the setting. تمام. يعني أنا ضد إنك أنت تنهي البحث خلاص أوكي I have finished. Do you have any question? Like لا، أنت ممكن تشكر القائمين على المؤتمر نفسه. ممكن تقول يعني يعني تتكلم يعني recommendation emphasize recommendation بشكل أكبر، وبناء على recommendation تعمل الكونكلوجن. بالشكل هذا حيكون impressive صراحة. أكيد كثير طبعا. وعلى فكرة يعني أغلب الأشخاص اللي I know إن نقبلوا في تخصصات كان الكومبيتيشن فيها عالي، أو أي تخصص بشكل عام يعني في مراكز الكومبيتيشن فيها عالي، بسبب إنهم دائما يعني قدموا أبحاث في مؤتمرات وهم لسه fourth year أو fifth year medical student، وما يعني ما تتصوروا ايش قد الانكورجمنت يكون لهم يعني بشكل كبير. يعني أذكر أنا أحد المؤتمرات اللي حضرتها كان عندي تقريبا بحثين بس. بعد ما قدمت المؤتمر أعطاني انكورج إني في خلال تقريبا شهرين اشتغلت على 4 أبحاث. تمام. It's not like عدد الأبحاث، هي يعتمد على يعني قد إيش الشيء هذا يعطيك دافع إنك تقدم بشكل أكبر وبشكل أعمق. تمام. كيس ريبورت وبوستر as a poster presentation. اوكي ممكن نتكلم عن نقطة مهمة، إن كثير يحسوا إنه اوكي this is case report مستحيل ناخذ مركز فيه. تمام. لكن هالشيء خاطئ بشكل كبير، لاني اذكر احد المؤتمرات الكبيره جدا، وفي النيورو سيرجري برضه، ما ادري اذا الدكتور حسام يعرفها او لا، في احد الاشخاص اخذ مركز الاول وهو تكلم عن كيس ريبورت. الموضوع مو كيس ريبورت ولا اكسبيرمنتال ولا اي انواع البحث، الموضوع هو ايش الامباكت اوف يور ريسيرش على الجانب العلمي نفسه. تمام. الكيس ريبورت كان يعني فيري يونيك، فعشان كذا اخذ مركز كويس. طيب هاو تو دو ريسيرش، طبعا في كثير كورسات احنا كنا نقدمها قبل، وفي كثير يعني موجوده في كل تقريبا الجامعات. لما تحضر تحضر كورس يعطيك تصور كبير عن الابحاث. ودائما انا اقول ان الابحاث اتس براكتيكال ثينج، كل ما بديت فيه وعملت اخطاء حتتعلم اكثر وحيصير الريسيرش اسهل بالنسبه لك. طبعا اكيد يشمل كل انواع البحوث. زي ما قلت انت يعني call of abstract هذه ممكن تلاقيها في كثير من حسابات المتخصصه في المجال معين. مثلا الاي ان تي، انا اتابع كل حسابات الاي ان تي، كل ما شفت شيء كذا call of abstract اشوف الاوتلاينز حقت الكونفرنس واسجل فيه. I did not get the chance to win. How will this affect me? خليني أقول لكم حاجة. يعني يمكن أخذت، يعني أنا أتكلم عن المستوى الشخصي، أخذت يعني مراكز في كثير من المؤتمرات، لكن الشيء اللي أنا أفتخر فيه أكثر شيء، يعني أكثر من المراكز، اللي هو أحد المؤتمرات في دبي. فالموضوع مو موضوع أنك أنت تأخذ مركز، الموضوع عن نوع المؤتمر اللي أنت تقدم فيه، وعن الأشياء اللي أنت تتعلمها بعد تقديمك وتتجنبها في أو الفرص الجاية. تمام. والله ما حضرت، لكن إذا تقصد كيمارك فهم صراحة أنا رحت يعني حاولت أعمل بحث معاهم، كانوا بيرفكت صراحة في جدة، فما أدري عن مستوى الكورس نفسه، لكن هم كمركز بحثي أسطوري صراحة. أتوقع أن خلصنا. لا أبدا، بالعكس، كثير من الاكسبيرمنتال ريسيرش تتقدم في المؤتمرات وهي لسه ما خلصت وتاخذ مراكز. طيب خليني أقول لك إن خصوصا يعني في العلم الحديث الحين، أنت روح شوف الناس اللي أخذوا جائزة نوبل، حتلاحظ إنهم it's not like one person، لا they are team. الشيء اللي حتعمله with your team ترى حيكون أفضل بكثير أو أسهل بكثير من إنه لما تعمل البحث ألون. أتوقع إنه we did finish. طيب بالنسبة للفيديو أنا تكلمت عنه، هو كان عن تجربة لكن تكلمت عنه verbally، فخلاص يعني you already get the point. البوستر تقدمها كبوستر، يعني هي one يعني بوستر حيكون فيه شامل كل البحوث. السلايدز دائما تكون more attractive، ويعني خليني أقول لك إنه مقبول أكثر، وحيكون التفاعل على البحث حقك أكبر بكثير. فدائما أنت من رأيي خصوصا كميديكال ستودنت حاولوا تقدموا بوستر وأورال برزنتيشن بنفس الوقت. تمام، بحيث إنه if you did not get oral chance ممكن تاخذ اللي هو البوستر chance. تمام، و both of them is good يعني. طيب شكرا جزيلا لكم جميعا، وجدا استمتعت بالتواجد معكم. برعاية الله.